Here we are in the northwestern corner of Connecticut in the historic town of Washington. And just a short distance from Washington Depot, we come upon an Indian village. This village is located at the Institute for American Indian Studies off Route 199. But don't blink, because the Institute and its buildings blend so well into the natural environment of the area. The Institute has two buildings, a central exhibit and educational center, which features a circular wigwam design. Here the interior has two main exhibit and gallery halls, surrounded by several learning classroom areas. The second research center building naturally seems built into the hill. It also hosts an exhibit hall. But here we find a library and offices for research staff, and below ground, the temperature-controlled vault, which contains Indian artifacts from across our nation. The lights are on and looks inviting. Let's take a look into the main exhibit hall. Here we can view various artifacts of the Eastern Native Algonquin people, as they would have come to utilize in their daily existence. You also get to read their stories and learn about their customs. This exhibit features the presence of Native voices, one of the most important aspects of the Institute's central exhibit. As we tell our stories, living traditions, and the Algonquin people of New England. Throughout this exhibit, visitors can read the words of many Algonquin Indians as they tell their own stories and interpret their own histories. Over the last 25 years, there have been many tribal members from across the Northeast Native American community that have shared their experiences and knowledge that helped develop the Institute into what it is today. In our second exhibition hall, the George Darlow Hall, you can view paintings, textiles, jewelry, pottery, baskets, and exhibits throughout the year. Presently, we have the Language of Baskets exhibit. Baskets are the woman's poem. Their shaping of them her sculpture. They weave into them their story of their life and love. Since prehistoric times, baskets have always been a part of Native American lives. Food was gathered, prepared, and cooked in baskets. Babies were cradled in them. Goods were stored in them, and often people were buried with baskets. Baskets were, and continue, to be more than just a utilitarian object. They are embedded with the spirituality, identity, and culture of the weaver. On baskets, the word of Gladys Tuntagwinjun, Mohegan. There is a spiritual force that flows through all things. And if these symbols are true representations of that force, this spirit should be expressed in the designs. The most important aspect of Mohegan life, the spirit, would manifest itself as a dominant decorative symbol on the splint baskets. I believe I hear the sound of children's voices. They must be coming from the wigwam room. This living classroom plays host to many school children throughout the Connecticut area. The Indian Institute was originally set up for research, but over the years has also centered on education. Here in the wigwam room, the staff at the Institute does a wonderful job of connecting with children. This living classroom environment seems to come alive with questions and answers. The children leave with a better understanding of the daily living lifestyles of our Native American people.
Or spearhead? Spearhead. Arrow. And you see a lot of the ones later on have more of a notch down here. Well, because that would fit directly onto your arrow. So they would take this and then they would have a notch in here, right in that way. They would tie it on. That's how they would secure them to their arrows. This one's called a snook kill. Everyone has a different name.
Thank you, Lisa, for our lesson in wigwam life. But let's now go outside to the outdoor Indian village with its wigwams. Let's take a walk up these pole staircases and see what awaits us. Today is the start of the spring season at the Institute, and this is the time for maple syrup gathering. We will be visiting with primitive technologist Jim Dina as he demonstrates the gathering and boiling of the syrup.
A piece of elderberry bush, and lots of bushes have a very hollow interior, And see that pulpy stuff, the pith, you can just kind of scrape that out. And that's a sap guide. So I came out early this morning before the sun hit the tree too hard, and I put the sap guide in here, and the fit's terrible. So I took some pine sap, some pine pitch, and heated it up and glued it under here, and then put some clay on for insurance, and the thing leaks anyway. So I didn't do quite a good enough job, but it's getting down there. But if we had a good sap
Still
run
got
today,
some sap down there.
if we had a good sap run, this thing would be
Look, I did it.
dripping like crazy. Okay. So that's the first stage, and that's one possible way they could have
There
collected.
was an educated group, the Jesuits, who wrote down the material culture of the Indians. And they mentioned that the French women learned to make maple sugar from the Indians, but it was better than the Indians. The Indian sugar tasted burnt. I said, now why would that be? They didn't say why. Anybody got a clue? What would the French women be using to boil down there?
A cast iron pot.
Cast iron pot, sure, exactly. And the Indians might have got these eventually from the French. But my guess is that they were stone boiling it, all right, which I'll do in a minute. And during the later stages, when the sap starts to congeal and get a little thicker, these red hot stones are probably burning the sugars and taste burnt. So that's a tantalizing clue as to what could have taken place.
So is this basically kind of what your stove was for your boiling tools back there? Like,
Yeah, this was a
then?
traditional way of boiling, and in fact, Plains Indians in particular, out west, didn't use a lot of, once they got the horse anyway, didn't use a lot of powder because it's not very transportable.
and break.
And it's the easiest thing to break.
Right.
And they often reverted to stone boiling. They would dig a hole, stretch a rawhide into the hole. It was moderately waterproof when it was wet, and throw whatever they wanted into that hide-lined hole and throw hot stones in. Stone boil. Look at that. I mean, that's really boiling up, and it'll go on for quite a bit of time because the stones have
Yeah, look at that.
huge heat capacity. Yeah. Just a few of the people who were here before, who were all members of the tribe, used that canoe over there as a boiling trough. We had 4 fires going, 4 piles of stones, and lots of people working all the time. We could process.
Did they do that? They would use a canoe?
They might in the water by this time of year, but some people might not have. The last stage is you'd find out that it would start caramelizing, and it would actually adhere to the stick, and it would harden as it cools, and that would be sugar. Hardened sugar, and they pound that sugar into granules and store it dry. That's the preferred way, because they didn't have good liquid containers with screw-on caps. They're kind of fascinated, not just in one thing that, say, native cultures did, but the whole fabric of their society. And that's how they educated. The kids helped out. You know, a girl knew by the time she was 12 how to make pottery. She had watched her mother do it 12, or probably 7 years in a row, and had to help out. Hand me the clay, hand me the water. She didn't ask specific questions about what the proportions were. She saw what her mother put in, and saw it year after year. So. And the shirt, that's pretty obvious what you're looking at. It's a long shirt, but why is it so long? Notice it's not tucked in. Not much to tuck it into, okay? And a totally different concept from a European shirt.
You wearing a breech under that?
Yeah, I am.
Are you really?
Yeah, and these are pants. These are basically, excuse me, I'm not trying to show anybody anything, but this covers the important part. It's a breech cloth. And that's all, a loincloth. That's all you would wear in the summer. And when you need pants, here they are. They're tied to the same belt. This is supporting them. So it's like those camp pants that you can unzip the legs and get instant shorts. Except the fit up stinks here. So that's where the shirt comes in. It was a thigh-length shirt. It takes, as I say, it takes me about a half hour to put all this stuff on. Everything's tied on. So, but it's fun clothing to wear, and I wear it hunting fairly late hunting season, not during I don't wear it during the deer season.
They don't want that.
This thing is really warm, and there have been a couple of days up here where I had to wear this, where it was really, really cold. But I get the impression that most of their clothing was semi-tailored. And even my shirt's semi-tailored. It isn't tight. There's no buttons on it. It's a pullover. But I just tailored the shape of the hide to kind of go around me as best as possible. Probably should take the deer coat off, but I won't bother. There's a little pin to keep it shut. No buttons, but that's the next closest thing. I guess if it gets really cold, you can tie the hind legs here too. But
Tuck your tail between your legs.
well, I was going to say, I was going to cut off the tail until I sat up here. I was tripping over the tail at one point. One demo, I was sitting up here on these coal logs, and I realized that that's maybe a pretty narrow seat, but boy, does that make a difference when you sit down on the
dog's tail instead of on the bench of it. It's really very warm and highly functional, but
Now, it's not restrictive or tight, any of those? Or
Pardon
is there
me?
enough give in?
yeah, there's quite a bit of give in the hide, and it doesn't close in the front anyway. Even my deerskin shirt is extremely loose. So this is size 42 coyote. So I mean, I'm roasting on this thing now. So this isn't a terribly cold day, but we've had a couple of maple sugar seasons up here where there was a foot of snow on the ground and a lot of wind, and this thing really saved me. But it's kind of interesting what they had to go through to keep it.